Taught us about Menachos, and it stated that all the different types of Menachos can come from flour, which is from grain either in Israel or outside of Israel. The exceptions to that are the Omer and the Shtei Alechem, exactly. So the Mishnah taught us that the Omer and the Shtei Alechem, those are menachos that have to come from flour that's from the new grain, and it has to come from flour from the land of Israel. So we learned in the Gemara. The Gemara said, let's start again with the Gemara again. Masnisin deloki haitana. Our Mishnah is not like the following Tana. The Tana, because we learned in a Brisa, Omer Abba min hayashan kasher. According to the Tana of the Brisa, Omer from old grain is kasher. And Shtei Alechem abos min hayashan ksheros. And the two breads of Shavuos, if they come from the old grain, they're also kasher. Ela shechiser mitzvah, but if you were to do so, you would miss out on a mitzvah. Omer d'chsiv. Omer, what's the source? Because it says v'im takriv minchas bikurim laHashem aviv kalu ba'esh geresh karmel takriv es minchas bikurecha. Because it says takriv es minchas bikurecha. Takriv, you should bring it sounding in any way. Afilu min aliyah, even if it's from stuff that's already in storage. It's old grain. Shtei Alechem, the source is from the verse that says, "Mimosh v'osechem taviu lechem tnufa shtayim shnei asonim solas tiyena chametz te'afenem bikurim laHashem." T'chsiv Mimosh v'osechem taviu, from your residences you should bring v'lo min chutz la'aretz. So that does imply that it has to be from Israel, not from outside of Israel, but Mimosh v'osechem from your residences. V'afilu min aliyah, and even if it's already been cut and the grain is already in the attic. Asks the Gemara, one second, how can you say that the grain that's already been cut is okay from the word mimosh v'osechem? Hafikte, you already used that word mimosh v'osechem to teach me that it has to be from the land of Israel, not from outside the land of Israel. So the answer is Amar Kra, since the verse says mimosh v'osechem taviu, you shall bring. V'afilu min aliyah, even that which was already cut, you can bring from there, even from the attic. Asks the Gemara, v'ami boyle, but don't we need the word taviu to teach me something else? And anything that you bring from another place is also like this. Namely, that's to teach me that you can't. It's telling me about lachmei toda. That's the source, that lachmei toda are chametz, and that it's an isaron per loaf, because whatever you're bringing from somewhere else is like this one. It's like the Shtei Alechem. Answers the Gemara, if it was only to teach me something about lachmei toda, lichtov kra tavi, Torah could have said, bring my tavi. Why in the plural sense you shall bring shmamina tarti? So from there I see we can learn two things from it. Number one, a law about lachmei toda, and number two, we can learn a law about the grain for the Shtei Alechem. Asks the Gemara, how can we say that the grain for the Shtei Alechem and the grain for the Omer, the Eved, could come from things that were already cut, from Yashan, from old grain? But the Torah describes the Omer as the Reishis. You bring the Omer, it's the first of your harvest. So the first of your harvest is not that which has already been cut in the attic. Right? It says l'mitzvah. That's just saying that ideally it should be the first of the harvest. But if it's not the first of the harvest, you still can use it as the Omer. Asks the Gemara, haksiv. But what about the fact that it says about the Shtei Alechem, that it's mincha chadasha laHashem, mincha what's new for Hashem? So Gemara says, no, this word chadasha mibayale, that's needed l'kidatanya from what we learned in a Brisa. Rabbi Nassim and Rabbi Kiva Omru, Rabbi Nassim and Rabbi Kiva said, Shtei Alechem abos min hayashan ksheros, the two breads, if they come from old grain, it is kasher. Yumani makayim chadasha, but what did the verse mean to say when it says it's a mincha chadasha, it's a mincha of the new? It means shetei chadasha l'chol menachos, that all the other menachos can't come from the new grain until this mincha is brought. Once this mincha is brought, Now you can bring chadasha. It's the mincha that allows the chadasha. It's the mincha that allows the new grain. But not necessarily that this mincha comes from new grain. It can come from old grain.
The new grain automatically becomes kosher? Is that what it is?
With the bringing of the omer,
Yeah.
it becomes kosher for coming into the Beis Hamikdash with the bringing of the shtei alechem.
But
The reason why shtei alechem is called mincha chadasha, this is the mincha that allows the new grain.
but the new grain is not edible. Do they eat it? No, right?
Once it's kosher, you can eat it.
I know, but aren't they like Shemitah for 3 years? They have to wait and
No, that's only with trees. Trees, the 3 years of produce is arla, and but not with vegetation, with svichim, with grains.
There are some rabbis they check the to see the grain was like another for bread. They don't eat the bread because they want to check to make sure it's like
That the grain is that's right. That it's yashan. They want to make sure that it's old grain.
Old grain, right?
We're about to see. There's a discussion
about this new grain. They eat that, Rabbi.
Well, we're about to see if this law that you can only eat the new grain after Pesach, if that applies to outside of Israel. We're about to see that. So ad kan lo pligi. So what's the argument? Ela b'chadash, right? So our Mishnah says that the omer and the shtei alechem have to come from the new grain, and in this brisa we have an opinion that the omer and shtei alechem can come from old grain. Avol ba'aretz, but now starting today's daf. But in fact, that's the fact that the omer and the shtei alechem have to come from the grain of the land of Israel, and it can't come from the grain of outside of Israel. Lo pligi. Here, there's no argument. Everybody apparently agrees to omer shtei alechem mi'aretz im michutz la'aretz lo. That the minchat omer and the shtei alechem, they have to be taken from the grain of the land of Israel, not from the grain of outside of Israel. So Kiman, who is that like? So the Gemara says that is something which is argued. May not be argued between this brisa and this Mishnah, but there is an opinion that argues it. Kiman, who is it like? To lo, it's not kihai Tana, like the following Tana. The Tana went in a brisa, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yosef the son of Rabbi Yehuda says, Omer ba michutz la'aretz. The omer can come from the grain of outside of Israel. Umani mekayim kisavo el haaretz. And what am I fulfilling with the phrase? When you will come to the land, then you bring it, then you bring the first of your harvest, which implies only from the land, not from outside of the land. No, that doesn't mean that. What that means is lo neschayvu ba'omer kodem shenichnasu la'aretz. That until we entered the land and conquered the land, we were not obligated in the omer. But once we entered the land, then we became obligated in the omer. And once we were obligated in the omer, we were obligated both in the land and outside the land. Kasava, the Tana of this Mishnah this brisa holds, Chadash b'chutz la'aretz de'oraisahi, that the new grain, even in America, even in Iran, even in France, the new grain that's planted after Pesach, we are not allowed to eat it until Pesach, even though it's outside of Israel. The verse says, Mimosh v'oseichem, from your residences. That just means once you settle. But once you settled, it applied to outside of Israel too. So if there is a prohibition of the new grain outside of Israel, then the grain for the mincha, for the karban omer, which is supposed to come from the new grain, it's supposed to be the first of the new grain being offered, can come from outside of Israel too. Therefore, Chasav Chadash b'chutz la'aretz de'oraisa, he holds that Chadash outside the land of Israel is a biblical obligation. Mm-hmm. And how does he see it? Because the verse says, Mimosh v'oseichem, from your residences, which he interprets to mean, Kol makom sh'atem yoshvin mashma. It means wherever you're living. Wherever you're living.
Is that an opinion or a halacha?
This is the big argument, whether this is the halacha or not. And therefore, v'chitavo, when the verse says, when you will come in, it's not to say that outside of Israel is not included, that only in Israel is included. It means, though, Zman Bihu. Once you come in, at that time, then the prohibition starts, but it starts in Israel and outside of Israel. It came into Oraisu, and since it's biblical that there is a prohibition of Chadash outside of Israel, According to this opinion, a kruve nami makrivin, you can also bring the omer from the grain of outside of Israel. So now, it's against the Mishnah. But it's the view of this price. So actually in Maseches Kiddushin we see that this is an argument between two Tanaim, whether the new grain prohibition applies outside of Israel or it doesn't apply outside of Israel. And in terms of the halacha, most authorities say that the prohibition of new grain does apply biblically to outside of Israel. That is the view of most authorities. But there are some authorities who are lenient. Some authorities say that the prohibition of new grain only applies outside of Israel rabbinically and not biblically, not like this view. And there are even some authorities who say that the prohibition of new grain that applies outside of Israel only applies to the places, if it's rabbinic, so they say it's rabbinic, and they say it only applies to those places that are close to Israel. Maybe Syria, Jordan, Sinai, but it doesn't apply to those places that are far from Israel. That's the view of Rabbeinu Baruch. The Rosh didn't like this view, but Mishnah Berurah says maybe we're relying on it because nowadays a lot of people are not careful with the law of the new grain. Everybody's eating. They're not checking to make sure it's old grain.
Do we know exactly the borderlines of Israel those days, Rabbi?
Yes, there's a Mishnah in Masechta Shvius, the laws of Shemitah, which talks about every single borderline of the land of Israel. In the north, there was probably up in Turkey. It's called Turei Amanah, the mountains of Amanah, something called Hor HaHor. And in the southwest, it went to Wadi El Arish. We do know the borders of Israel, the northern Sinai.
United Nations and
So there was an attempt to do that. Yeah. I believe that when the UN passed their infamous resolution that Zionism by definition is racism and that the Jews are not entitled to their own country and certainly not in the land of the Arabs, that one of the speeches blasting that resolution was given by Ambassador Chaim Herzog, where he took out the Chumash and he tried to read the Psukim. I don't think it swayed the anti-Semites of the world very much, but he did wave around the Chumash or Tanakh to them. I don't think it did much. Okay, Tanan Hassam. We have a Mishnah in Masechet Shkalim. During Shemitah, we have a problem. You're not allowed to plant during Shemitah, and whatever grain grows on its own during Shemitah is tzvichin, and tzvichin are prohibited. You're not allowed to eat them. So we had a problem. Things were growing. There wasn't so much food around. Maybe animals were going to eat it. You wouldn't even have new grain for the Omer. So how are you going to bring the Omer during Shemitah? So the Mishnah says in Shkalim, Shomrei tzvichin b'shvius, the guards would be appointed by the court to guard the wheat that grows on its own during Shemitah, to make sure that it will be around come Pesach, so we can make out of it a Minchas Omer. They would get paid from the half shekels that the entire community gives. But that's the Mishnah. So Rami Bar Chama Rav Chizdar, and Bar Chama challenged this with another Mishnah. So now we have a Mishnah in Shkalim. Shomrei Svichen b'Shvius Notlim Schar Mitrumas Halishka. This is what we just said. That those who are watching the new grain that grew up on its own during Shemitah, because you couldn't plant it, they get paid from the Trumas Halishka or Minu. But I'll challenge you. The Torah says, "V'aisa Shabbos Aretz Lachem La'achla." The Shemitah year should be for you for eating. So la'achla v'lo l'sreifa. It means you're supposed to eat what has Shemitah sanctity. You're not supposed to burn what has Shemitah sanctity. So how could you take the new grain that grew on its own during Shemitah and use it as a korban, use it as a sacrifice, as a minchas omer? A fistful of it is going to be burned. Isn't that a desecration of the sanctity of Shemitah? Amarle, so he said to him, Rachman Amlecha, Hashem told you about the Minchas Omer, Chukas Olam L'Doro Seichem. It's an eternal law for all your generations. So if it's an eternal law for all your generations, that means it applies during Shemitah too. V'at Amra Tibatel, you're going to say not to bring it during Shemitah because part of it's going to be burned? We have to bring the Minchas Omer every year. So Rabbi Bar Chama said back to Rav Chisda, Amar Le, Mi Kamina Nati Batel. Am I telling you that it's going to be annulled? Leisi Midish Daked. What I'm proposing is use grain from the year before Shemitah, from 2 years ago, for the Omer. And that way you're using grain that doesn't have any sanctity. And you're not violating the law that produce with Shemitah sanctity is not allowed to be burned. It has to be eaten. So he answered him, the reason why we can't use such grain is that the grains that go for the Minchas Omer are defined as Carmel in the Torah, Ba'ina Carmel. And Carmel means that it has to be fresh, that it's very soft, that when you rub it, the chaff comes right off, that it's really soft. It's just ripening. The lack of, if I'm going to use grain from last year, it's not going to be that way. So the Gemara says, why? V'leisimi Carmel dishdaked. Cut it down last year when it's still in the Carmel state, and use it this year. Amar Kra, answers Rav Chisda, the pasuk says, Carmel takriv. You shall bring close grain, a carbon of grain that is Carmel. Carmel you shall bring close. So, Carmel b'shas sakrava. It has to be that at the time that you're bringing the Omer, the flour from this Omer is from grains that are Carmel, that are just ripe and easily separated from the chaff. The leka, that's not possible if you're going to be using grain from last year. And since we have to bring an Omer every year, that's why we have to bring an Omer from this year, even though it's Shemitah produce. Even though Shemitah produce normally should never be burned, here we have to burn it, a little bit of it.
Rabbi, I thought for Omer offering is always barley, no?
Yeah.
But why are you talking about grain now?
Barley is a grain. There are 5 grains. There's wheat, barley, spelt, rye,
so it's
and
not
oats.
regular wheat grain.
It's barley grains.
Barley grains.
Correct.
Okay.
It's barley grains. Itmar, we learned, Rabbi Yochanan said, what's the source that it has to be Carmel? Since it says Carmel Takriv, you have to bring Carmel. That's what you have to bring from the barley of this year, not from the barley of last year. Rabbi Elazar says, since it says Reishis K'tzircha, the first of your harvest, Reishis K'tzircha, it has to be from the first of what you're cutting down. The low sof K'tzircha, it can't be from the end of what you cut down. In other words, if I'm bringing last year's grain, it's the end of the harvest, it's not the beginning of the harvest. Most of Rabbah challenged the view of Rabbi Yochanan. We learned, the verse says, V'im takiv minchas bikurim. If you will bring a mincha of the first, so what's the mincha of the first? The minchas ha'omer kasim medaber. That's a reference, says the Brisa, to the minchas ha'omer, as Baruch reminded us, of barley. And what do you use? Where does it come from? Minas Orim. It comes from the barley. You're saying it comes from the barley. Oh, Eino Ella, Menachite. Maybe it's not from the barley. Maybe it's coming from the wheat. Answers the Gemara. Answers the Brisa. Rabbi says you can't say that. Namar Aviv b'Mitzrayim. It says about the plague of hail in Egypt. Va'pishta vas'ora nukasa. The pishta, the flax, and the barley were smitten ki asora aviv, because the saora was recently ripe. Va'pishta giv'ol. So there the word aviv is put next to the word saora. So that tells me that aviv, in regards to the plague of barad, refers to barley. V'namar aviv lidoros, and it says about this mincha, also the word aviv, im takriv minchas bikurim la'Hashem, and if you'll bring this mincha of first to Hashem, the verse says, aviv, it has to be aviv. Kalui ba'esh, popped in fire. Geresh, ground up. Carmel, it has to be soft. Takrivas minchas bikurecha, that's how you'll bring the first mincha. So it says here also aviv. So ma aviv aviv b'Mitzrayim, just like the word aviv in regards to what was going on in Egypt referred to saorim, to barley. Af aviv amr l'doros, ein abal min saorim. So to the aviv said about the mincha refers to barley. And Rabbi Akiva says a different source. We know that individuals have mincha obligations. Those mincha obligations are almost always wheat. But also sometimes maybe sometimes an individual will have an obligation to bring a mincha out of barley. Let's say Chas v'Shalom, his wife is a sota. So then there is the minchas knaos, the offering of jealousies, which is brought out of barley. So therefore, af tzibur, maybe chovas menachitim. We know that the community has to bring a mincha sometimes out of wheat, namely the shtei alechem, the 2 loaves brought on Shavuos. Therefore, it should also have to have some obligation from barley, or maybe chovas menas orim. If you're going to tell me menachitim that the omer is from wheat, then you never have the community bringing a mincha out of barley. Another source that the mincha omer is from barley. If you're going to say that the minchas omer is out of wheat, then you can't define the 2 breads on Shavuos as being the first of the wheat, because the wheat was already used in the minchas omer on Pesach. Okay, this is the brisa. Alma, so what do you see? Mishum bikurim, that when we see the term, what do you see here? The final idea of the brisa that the word, since the shtei alechem is bikurim, it has to be from the first wheat, and therefore you couldn't have had the first wheat used already during the omer. So if so, how could you possibly imagine that we're bringing wheat from last year? If you bring wheat from last year, it's not going to be bikurim, it's not going to be the first. And the shtei alechem has to be the first. So Gemara says to Yufta, you're right. This is disproven the view of Rabbi Yochanan. And you're right, the reason why you can't use the grain of last year is not from the word rashis. It's not from the fact that it says Carmel, but rather it's from the fact that it says rashis, it says it's the first. And we see that it does have to be really the first. And that's why you can't use from last year's grain for the shtei alechem, according to these opinions. Tanan Asam, we learned in a Mishnah in Maseches Bikurim, Ein Revi'in Bikurim Chutz Mishiva Saminim. When it comes to the mitzvah of Bikurim, of bringing the first fruits up to the Beis HaMikdash and giving them to the Kohen, you have to bring Bikurim from the 7 fruits of Eretz Yisrael, namely wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, or dates. But what type of dates? The Torah calls those dates dvash, dates that produce honey. So therefore, below, you can't bring mitmarim shebaharim, you can't bring from the dates that grow in the mountains because they don't produce good honey. Below miperos sheba'amakim, nor from the dates that grow in the deep valleys because they also don't produce good honey. Amar Ula said, Im Hevi, if he violates this and he brings bikurim from what's in the mountains or in the valleys, Lo Kidesh, it doesn't have the status of bikurim. Yasiv Rabba v'kamel l'shmaita, Rabba was sitting and saying over this lesson of Ula. Eisvi Rav Acha bar Abba l'Rabba, Rav Acha, the son of Abba, challenged Rabba. The verse says about the shtei alechem, Karban reishis takrivu osam la'Hashem. A carbon of first you shall bring them for God. So that sounds like that teaches you shetei reishis l'kol menachos. It's the first of all the menachos. In other words, you don't bring any other mincha from the new grain until you brought this one. V'cheinu omen. So to the verse says, Uv'yom ha'bikurim ba'akrivchem mincha chadash l'Hashem v'shavuoseichem. On the day of the Bikurim, when you bring the mincha of the new for Hashem after your weeks. Ein li el chadasha shel chitim. So I only know that this is the new grain for the wheat. Chadash shel se'ora minayin. How do we know that the minchas ha'omer also has to be the first of the new barley? That's what the verse says. Chadasha, chadasha. It says the word chadasha twice. Mincha chadasha la'Hashem. And then it says v'yikrav mincha chadasha la'Hashem. So eino inyan l'chadasha shel chitin. So I already had one verse telling me that this has to be the first of the wheat. So it's eino inyan l'chadasha shel sorim. So therefore I can say that the second time it says chadasha is to tell me that the omer is the first of the barley. And now says another point, says the Brisa, I don't know that the shtei alechem have to come before all the other fruits, all the bikurim. You can't bring bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash until the shtei alechem are brought. That's what the verse says, V'chag Shavuos, and the holiday of Shavuos, ta'aseh lecha, make for yourself, Bikurei Ktsir Chitim, the first at the time of the harvest of the wheat. Ve'enli, I can only learn from this verse, El Bikurei Ktsir Chitim. Okay, it has to be it's the first of the harvest of wheat. Ktsir Sora Minayin, how do we know that it's also before the harvesting of barley? Tamaloma, that's what the verse says. V'chag hakatzir bikurei ma'asecha asher tizra b'asadeh. And the holiday of the harvest, the first of your deeds, of whatever you plant in the field. So even if you're bringing bikurim out of barley, first the shtei alechem have to be brought, and then the bikurim of the barley can be brought. V'yein li ela tizra. So maybe that's only things that you planted, that you have to first bring the shtei alechem, and then you can take from what you planted. But how do we know that the shtei alechem come before the things that grew on their own? That's what it says in the field. So maybe only the things that grow in a field. How do we know that the shtei alechem have to come before the bikurim, the first fruit that may have grown on a rooftop, or in a rune, or in a flower pot, or in a boat? That's what it says. Bikurei kol asher ba'artzam, the first of all that is in their land. That whatever, about all these things, first you have to have the shtei alechem, and then you can bring other things into the Beis HaMikdash.
Rabbi, the bikurim comes before 10% and 2% to Kohanim? Or
Yes.
So bikurim comes, and then whatever is left, they split it? Or first you have to give it the 10%?
Well, the rest hasn't ripened yet. Right? The bikurim is the first things that ripen. When the entire field ripens, then it's all harvested, then it's brought into a storage facility,
right,
and then it's put into a pile and smoothed out, and then you start taking the stuff for the Kohen.
So bikurim is first.
Bikurim is way
top
earlier.
priority.
Yeah,
Okay.
top priority.
All right.
So now, the shtei alechem, we've learned, permits using new grain in the Beis HaMikdash. Not only that, the shtei alechem is what permits bringing new produce into the Beis HaMikdash as bikurim. And now we're going to see that the shtei alechem is what permits using new wine. Minayin shetei kodemes l'nesachim and peiros ha'ilon. How do we know that first you have the shtei alechem, and only after that's brought, then you can start using new wine for nesachim in the Beis HaMikdash, and you can use, the new dates and figs for bikurim in the Beis HaMikdash? The answer is because it says here, Ne'amar, it says here, V'chaga katzir bikurei ma'asecha, the holiday of the harvest, the first of your deeds. Ne'amar lahalan, it says later on about Sukkos, ba'asbachas ma'asecha min, when you gather what you did from the field. So ma'lahalan is sachim u'peiros ha'ilon. So just like over there, it's referring to gathering everything, gathering in wine, gathering in fruits, because, it's going to become rainy. It's not going to become the time of harvest after that. Afkan, so to here, in regards to bikurei ma'asecha, there's a gzera sheva ma'asecha. So this shtei alechem is what's permitting you now to do nesachim, wine with the new grapes, upeiros ha'ilon, and to bring bikurim of the new fruits. Katani miha. So one of the things we saw though in this brisa is shebagag, even things that, let's say wheat that grows on a rooftop, or shebachurva, or that's growing in a rune, or shebatzitz, or growing in a flower pot, or shebasfina, or growing in a boat. You can't bring it as bikurim until the shtei alechem are brought. So you see that after the shtei alechem are brought, you could bring them as bikurim. So now, you could bring these things as bikurim, and these things are not even growing in the land. They're growing in a boat somewhere. So certainly you should be able to bring as bikurim dates that are growing on a tree, or dates that are growing in a valley, they're growing in the land. So the Gemara answers, Seifa, when that point, when it's talking about things that are growing in a flower pot, or in a rooftop, that's not talking about bikurim, Asan Menachos. That's referring to Menachos. We're saying that the shtei alechem are the first of the new grain for a mincha. And after the shtei alechem, then the new grain can be used for other menachos in the Beis HaMikdash. So we're saying for the grain of menachos, it could come from any place. We even said it can even come from outside of Israel, the grain of menachos. So that we're saying that only gets permitted though with the offering of the shtei lechem. But in terms of bikurim, maybe bikurim has to be a fruit that's a good fruit. It has to be a fruit that's like dvash, that's like honey, and you can't use a fruit that grows on a mountain or in a valley.
The juice is dripping, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Land flowing with milk and honey.
Yeah. No.
Ask for Rabbi Ahava. So Rabbi Ahava said, challenge this. If that's the case, if the verse is talking about menachos, but is that what the verse is saying? Kol tar b'veischa yochal oso. All the pure in your household can eat it. It sounds like this is something which everyone in the household of the Kohanim can eat. Even menachos, if we're talking about menachos, the zichri kuna hu demesachla, and as we said, menachos are only eaten to male Kohanim, not to everyone in the household. So Rav Misharshia explained, Trei kraik sivi. There are actually two verses there. On the one hand, it says l'cha yiyeh. We're talking about something which is going to be to you, Aaron, namely that the male Kohanim eat. And it says uksiv kol tar b'veischa yochal oso. All the pure in your household shall eat it. Okay, so what's it referring to? Both things. Kan b'bikurim. It's talking about bikurim that everyone in the Kohen's household can eat. And kan b'menachos, and it's referring to menachos that only the male Kohanim can eat. Rav Ashi said, Kulei b'menachos. Really, the verse is referring to menachos. The Sefer the Quran, the end of the verse that said, Kol tar b'veischa yochlenu, asan olachmei toda. That's referring to the breads that come along with the toda, where 4 are given to the Kohanim when the Kohanim then wave them, and then the Kohanim are allowed to eat it, and not only them, but they can even give it to their wives and their children. Okay, going back to the idea that Ula said earlier, Ula says that for the mitzvah bikurim, you shouldn't bring the dates that are growing in mountains or growing in valleys. They're not such good dates. They're not dripping with honey. And we saw that there were questions about this. It was challenged by Rav Acha, the son of Abba. So the Gemara says it's really, other people also argue about this question. The plukta, this issue that's argued between Rav Ula and Rav Acha bar Abba was also argued by others. Rabbi Yochanan says, Im hevi, if you bring dates from the mountains or from the valleys, as bikurim, lo kidesh, they did not become holy with the holiness of bikurim. Rish Lakish disagrees. He says, Im hevi, if you brought dates from the mountains or valleys, kidesh, they do become holy with the holiness of bikurim. And nasa kikachu shabakatshin. It's like a person who wants to bring as a korban an animal that's weak. It's kadosh, it's holy, it's not the best. You should bring a nice, fat animal. You brought a scrawny, skinny animal, it's okay. Same things with bikurim. The best would be dates that are dripping with honey. If you brought weak dates, it's also okay. Says the Gemara, Bishlama, Rish Lakish. Okay, Rish Lakish, Kedamar Timer. Rish Lakish explains his reasoning. The same way you can bring an animal, b'di'eved, in the worst case, it's not so healthy. So you can bring dates that aren't so luscious or sweet. Rabbi Yochanan, my time, what's Rabbi Yochanan's source that the dates of bikurim have to be dripping with honey? Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Yochanan chazai b'chalom. Rabbi Lazar said, I saw Rabbi Yochanan last night in a dream. So, since I saw him in a dream last night, milsam al yasamina. I'm going to say today an amazing idea. I know I'm going to do well in the Beis Medrash today. You know what's the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan? Amar Kra, the verse says about the Bikurim, V'lakachta, and you shall take Meireshis kol pri adama, from the first of all the fruits of the land. So it says Meireshis, from the first. It doesn't say V'lakachta Reshis, you will take the first. It says you'll take from the first. From the first, v'lo kol reishis, not all of the first. Some things, yes, not all things, namely the best of those things. Now it says from the first. It says asher tavi me'artzecha, from your land, v'lo kol artzecha, not all of your land. So only some of the first, namely just the 7 special fruits. And even from those 7 special fruits, it's from the land, only the best of those 7 special fruits. Now Rish Lakish me'artzecha me'avid, what's he going to do from that word, from the land? He needs it. Look at the time before we learned in a brisa. Rabbi Gamliel bar Rabbi Omer. Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi, says, "Nemar kan eretz." It says over here, the land. Asher tavim me'artzecha. V'nemar lahan. It says about the land of Israel, eretz chitos ora gefen tein of rimon. Eretz esham rutvash. So Mal Halan Shvach Eretz Yisrael, just like over there, it's talking about those fruits that are the praise of Israel. Afkan, so too over here, Shvach Eretz Yisrael, the fruits of Shemitah, the fruits of Bikurim are only those fruits that are the praise of Eretz Yisrael. Namely, from the 7 fruits that the land of Israel is blessed with. The Idach, now how does Rabbi Yochanan know this? So he'll tell you that if the verse only meant to say that the Bikurim come from the 7 fruits of Israel, it could have said Eretz. The fact that it said Mei Eretz, from the land, is to say that not only is it the 7 fruits, but it's only the best of the 7 fruits. The Idach, and what is Rish Lakish going to do with that? Eretz Mei Eretz, lo mashmaleh. He doesn't think that there's something to learn from Mei Eretz. Okay, could have said Eretz, but the fact the Torah said Mei Eretz, the extra mem is not to teach us anything, and therefore he learns the 7 fruits from the Gzeira Shava Eretz, and he doesn't learn that the 7 fruits have to be the best of the 7 fruits. Tani Chadza, we learned in a Braisa, in terms of Bikurim. We learned in one Braisa, Shebegagba, Shebechurva, Shebesfina, maybe Vikore, if he's taking stuff that grew in his rooftop, or in a rune, or in a flower pot, or in a boat, he can bring it as Bikurim, and he can read the passages of the Bikurim and make the declaration, because it's considered Asher Tavi Mi'artzacha, what you bring from your land. The other Braisa says maybe you can bring it as the Bikurim, but you can't read it, you can't read the declaration. Bishma Rish Lakish, I can understand Rish Lakish who holds that if you bring from the dates of the mountains, it is okay for Bikurim. So you can explain the Braisa like this, that there's sometimes you don't bring, you bring but you don't read. So Gag, the contradiction of the Braisa is whether you bring from the fruits that grew on a roof. Lo kash, it's not a contradiction. If he plants on top of a roof which is over a cave, that's considered ground, then you can read. If he plants on a roof of a house, that's not called me'artzacha, he doesn't read. The contradiction between produce from a rune and produce from a rune is not a contradiction. One is referring to a rune which has been plowed up. One's referring to a rune that hasn't been plowed. It's also lo kasha. Kan ba'atzitz nakov. One's referring to a flower pot with a hole. Kan ba'atzitz sheino nakov. Then you can't say it's mina aretz. And sfina lo kasha. And boat to boat is not a contradiction. Kan b'sfina shel eitz. One is a boat of wood, so therefore it's not considered land. The kan and one is where you're bringing the bikurim b'sfina shel cheres, from produce that's growing in a boat of earthenware. It's considered in your land. Me'artzacha. El Rabbi Yochanan, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, kasha. It's a problem. So the answer is Tanai, he'll hold it's a machlokas Tanaim. The Tanya we learned in a Braisa, right? See here, it's a problem. He says that the not good fruit doesn't become Bikurim. Here you see it does. So he'll have to tell it's a machlokas Tanaim. The time we learned in a Braisa, Shavagag v'Shabachur v'Mevi B'Korei, that which is on the roof, that which is from the roof or from the rune, you bring it and you make the declaration. Shabbatis Shabbasfina, if you're bringing from what's in a flower pot or in a boat, maybe kol ikar, you don't bring it at all. Rabbi Chananya ben Akashya me'eretz HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakos Yisrael l'fi chachir b'leim Torah u'mitzvah shene'emar adonai chafetz l'mat tzidko yagdil to Rabbi Adir. Amen.